Simon, let's dive right into it. Why do you think there may be a reluctance on the part of property portals to have a digital end-to-end property transaction on their website?
Okay, I think the core reason is fear. If you think about it, if your core business model is set up around advertising and marketing, you are the friend of an agent or the friend of a developer. And what you are doing is providing them with a marketing service or a lead generation service. However, if you then move in and providing the end-to-end transaction service, there's two things. Either you're doing that as providing a service to the industry, but then the industry says, wait a second, that's what I do. Okay, which then is a very short leap of faith or belief into saying, wait a second, you're going to do my job. So that a seller, instead of going to an agent, could go to a portal, market their property, the transaction's completed, they get their check, and the portal can do it for less of commission than, say, the industry itself. And that's a fear that has been in property portals around the world for a long time. What is interesting, though, is in established markets, think Western Europe, North America, and like Australia and New Zealand and such, there's that sort of belief. Now, I'm marketing, and they're trying to slowly get into the transaction. So they do, they'll do the advertising. They'll then also offer mortgages, relocation services, insurance services, all part of the transaction, but not what the real estate agent's core business is, which is getting a bit of that commission. But then you go to emerging markets, think of Southeast Asia, think of Latin America, and you have dozens and dozens of portals who are making the transition into the transaction, because the industry itself has two failings. One, as an industry, it's not very strong. It's just a lot of small businesses. So there's no strong industry body, not like the NAR in the US, for example. And secondly, the amount of money the industry spends on marketing is so small, and we're talking $50, not even $100 a month, that the portals can't run a business in that. So they then say, well, you know what? I'm going to offer transaction services. And what they tend to do is focus initially on the primary market, so dealing with developers, because then you're not really doing anything except being a project marketer for a developer and really helping close the transaction, and the developers like that. And then they're progressively saying, how do I get into the industry itself and work with the agents, and sometimes in the case have their own agents and thus replace elements of the industry. So in established markets, I think it's primarily driven by fear, because 90% of their revenue is coming probably from some advertising, and they're afraid that if they are seen as going into the transaction or providing transaction services, that 90% will go down to zero quite quickly.
Okay, so you're saying there's a fear about getting into transactional services, but having spoken to Rob Hoban from Offer the other day, it struck me as very simple. What he was saying about portals and their reluctance struck me as very similar to what I saw with interviewing people in the 360 virtual tour space, and thinking about kind of on portal viewings or bookings management as well. It seems to me like the same thing. Is it just that portals are reluctant to do anything new, or is it that they're reluctant to specifically get into a transactional service?
Yeah, as I was talking before, I think they're reluctant to get into their customers' business. Okay, either you're a provider to the industry or you're part of the industry. It's a subtle difference, but an important difference. If I'm doing marketing, I'm giving you leads. Well, you need that to run your business. I'm no different to a newspaper. I'm no different to Facebook or wherever. But if I'm in the industry, okay, it's co-opetition. So I'm competing for leads that might go to my sales team or might go to the agent's, customer sales team. It gets very messy, and a lot of agents just have fear, right? That the portals with perceived deep pockets, strong brand awareness will then just start to eat their lunch. And I saw that fear going back to 1998, in the very, very early days of the industry in Australia, for example. And the big fear was, the agents would say, we need to own the portals because the portals will do our job. So it's almost ingrained after 25 years of, people going around saying, no, no, the belief is that the portals could at any time do the job of the agent.
Okay. Another thing that Rob said the other day was that perhaps real estate portals lack the technical expertise to bring something like an offer management platform onto their website. I thought he might have been being diplomatic or at least a good salesperson with that statement. What do you think? Do you think that they kind of lack expertise to build out 360 tours or um, booking management platforms or offer management platforms?
No, I don't think it's that complex. We all understand the real estate process from managing at one end of the spectrum a seller right through to document management, contract management, deposit management, and so on, right through to the completion of the sale, working with other third parties. I don't see that as a technology platform. That's not complex. And in established markets like the United Kingdom or the United States or lots of Europe, all the elements are there. It's just a case of stitching them together with via APIs to make it all work. So I don't see that as hard. I think where it becomes hard is you're changing the business model. You're changing it from where you're going to a customer and agent saying, give me a listing, give me some cash, I'll give you leads. Thank you very much. And there's a transaction, very basic transaction, and it's all done relatively through technology and so on. But if you're changing that model to saying, well, either A, you become a software provider, so I'll provide you with all the back-end software to run the transaction from beginning to end. Well, now you're not competing against the agents, but you're competing against all the CRM systems, the Vibras of the world. Okay, right? Now that's far more complex because when you're building out a lot of that technology, there's a lot of subtle things. Right? One thing is to say, I want to run the end-to-end transaction, but I'll use Viva as part of my answer. I'll use, I'll link to a property valuation system. I'll link to some legal systems to get lawyers and so on, right? That's all about linking and putting the glue together. Another thing is to say, I'm going to get into providing that service, software as a service, which I think is more complex. And if I go back to the days of a company called Hub Online, which when I was the CEO of REA, we bought because we thought we could do it and we knew everything. But software development is very, very difficult, and we totally screwed that one up, and to the point where it ended up getting closed down. And now I'm the chairman of what's called the PropTech Group, and we have Australia's largest and probably third largest, fourth largest CRM systems, and it's a complex business. Okay, if you're doing that, but once again, the CRM is provided to the industry. Okay, but why couldn't you then do transactions around a CRM system? Okay, but we've realized that that's very, very hard. I think the other element that's very, very hard is you're getting into sales, which means you've got to deal with a whole bunch of sales guys who are now in the transaction process, working with buyers, working with vendors, closing out deals, showing properties, and all that stuff that goes into making that process work. And working with salespeople is very, very hard because you've gone from a type of business model where you're selling a subscription-based service, so you're getting a check every month from a credit card, to a lumpy service where if you don't sell a property, you don't get paid. And it's a very difficult transition. It's a different type of business. And the companies, a bunch of the companies I invest in at the moment, like Alcubo or Fazwas, Alcubo's in Brazil, or Fazwas, which is in Thailand, or Lazudi in Southeast Asia, they've all come from a portal perspective and they're moving into the transaction perspective. And it's a non-trivial movement, but it's a doable movement in that world. And of course, they didn't have a lot of value to put at risk because the amount that customers were paying was very small.
Okay, last question from me. There seems to be a trend now, specifically in the US, where companies want to try and do everything. They want to call themselves 360 or they want to call themselves end to end. You've got obvious examples like Zillow and Redfin, but there's other companies out there that are coming at it from a different angle. I'm thinking Better.com, which is a mortgage brokerage, which is then building out a marketplace on top of it simply because they can. There's companies like Place.com, which are a software company marketing themselves to high-end brokerages. And there's also, coming back to full circle here, to offer management companies. There's a company called Dorsey, which is an offer management company that offers, bidding in real time, etc. And they're building out a marketplace on top of it. And as Rob told me the other day, Offer is doing something similar. They're building out a marketplace on top of the software that they built for agents, and they're doing it with the agent's blessing. And he told me that their marketplace is doing quite well simply because they've got a lot of inventory, and the agents kind of gave their blessing, as it were, to this marketplace. And he's really upbeat about it. Is this a model that you can see working in? Well, Rob's obviously in Ireland, but is it perhaps a model that will work in other places as well?
The interesting thing is, it depends what your underlying business model is. So if your underlying business model is, I want to get to agents and close out deals or help them close out deals, and I'll take a percentage of the commission because I run an offer management type thing. Well, the more leads you get into that, the more chance you've got of closing out a transaction. Putting a marketplace on top means I don't have to buy leads. Okay, I don't have to go to the other portals and buy leads or advertise properties or buy them off Google or Facebook or whatever. Having a marketplace is a free. I call it free because it's never free. You've got to build the technology and you have to be good at SEO, but you can generate leads. So I think any business who is reliant on leads to convert and can aggregate enough supply of listings should do a marketplace. Why not, right? And if I'm an agent, like, I care. I don't care where my lead comes from as long as I get a lead that I can close. It's when that then transforms itself into an end-to-end transaction. So I've got a lead, so I've got a buyer. I just go to say, I'm going to take this buyer lead and redirect it to my seller, and then the agent gets cut out of the process. That's where you can see the fear factor coming in. So I think, all better to everyone who wants to run a marketplace. Fantastic, you should do it, right? And I think if you want to do it really well, come to the Property Portal Watch conference in Madrid at 24th to 26th of October, and you can learn out how the super successful companies around the world are actually building these real estate marketplaces. But understanding and doing it well, especially from a transaction perspective, can create a lot of value. It's not a trivial exercise, and you're going to hit road bumps along the way, right? And part of that is you have to work out how to do that in parallel with your existing advertiser base, so you don't destroy value at a rate faster than you're creating value.
All right, Simon, always great to hear your thoughts on these subjects. Glad we've actually taped this one for once. Thanks for talking.
Thanks, Ed.